Donald Trump built an empire of gold towers and a political dynasty on one unbreakable rule: absolute unquestioning loyalty. But the untold story is the immense personal price his 5 children have paid for that loyalty. A price that has transformed some into political warriors, some into fallen brands, and cast others into the shadows of a kingdom under siege. So what really happened to the heirs of this controversial kingdom after the world of politics shattered their carefully constructed reality, and their family name became one of the most divisive forces in modern history? Welcome. You clicked on this video because you know the political figure, but you sense the real human drama lies within the family dynasty he commands. In this exhaustive deep dive documentary, we will explore the 5 distinct and dramatic paths of the Trump children. We will journey through the transformation of his eldest sons, Donald Jr. and Eric, from businessmen to political firebrands. We will analyze the rise and fall of his daughter Ivanka's political brand. We will respectfully uncover the story of the other daughter, Tiffany, and the intensely private life of the youngest son, Barron. To bring you this story, we have gone far beyond the campaign rallies and the partisan news coverage. We have analyzed financial disclosures, court documents from the recent New York civil fraud trial, the Mueller report, the findings of the January 6th committee, and the children's own books and interviews, to piece together the human cost and the complex choices involved in being a Trump. This is not just a "where are they now?" This is a deep, unflinching exploration of what happens when a family business becomes a political movement and the children are forced to become its soldiers, its diplomats, and its casualties. Number 5. The Warrior. Donald Trump Jr.'s transformation. The story of the Trump heirs begins with the firstborn son, the one who carries the famous name. For years he was seen as a polished but peripheral figure in his father's empire, the son who seemed more comfortable in the wilderness than in a boardroom. But the rise of his father's political career would ignite a stunning transformation, turning the reluctant heir into his father's most ferocious and controversial political warrior. Born on December 31st, 1977. Donald Trump Jr. was the first child of Donald Trump and his glamorous first wife, the Czech model Ivanka Trump. His childhood was the epitome of 1980s New York opulence. He grew up in a gilded triplex penthouse atop Trump Tower on 5th Avenue, a world of unimaginable wealth and privilege. His summers were spent in the Hamptons, his winters on the ski slopes of Aspen, his life a procession of private schools and exclusive events. He was by birthright a prince of New York society. Yet this golden childhood was shattered by one of the most public and scandalous divorces of the era. The affair between his father and Marla Maples was front-page tabloid news. A brutal daily soap opera played out in headlines like the New York Post's infamous "Best Sex I Ever Had." Don Jr., then just 12 years old, was old enough to read the headlines and understand the betrayal and public humiliation his mother was enduring. The pain was so acute that he famously did not speak to his father for over a year, a profound wound that would shape their relationship for decades to come. He has spoken of this time as a defining moment, one that taught him about loyalty and the cruel nature of public life. This childhood trauma is often cited by observers as the psychological root of his later almost fanatical public defense of his father. After graduating from the prestigious Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania, just like his father, Don Jr. seemed to resist the family business. In a move of quiet rebellion, he moved to Aspen, Colorado for a year, working as a bartender, hunting and fishing, embracing a rugged outdoorsman persona that was the antithesis of his father's urban glamour. It was a period of escape, an attempt to forge an identity outside the towering shadow of the Trump name, a life defined by mountains and streams rather than glass and gold. Eventually, however, the pull of the dynasty proved too strong, and he returned to New York to join the Trump Organization. For over a decade, he worked alongside his sister Ivanka and brother Eric, primarily focusing on real estate development, including major projects like the Trump International Hotel and Tower in Chicago. He was a key figure on the reality show The Apprentice, appearing as a judge, but was largely seen as the quieter, more business-focused son, overshadowed by the polished branding of his sister Ivanka. The turning point was the 2016 presidential campaign. It was here that Don Jr. found his voice, and a new, more aggressive public persona was born. He became one of his father's most effective and relentless campaign surrogates, connecting with the conservative base in a way that even his father sometimes struggled to. He was a natural on the stump, fiery, unapologetic, and fiercely loyal. He spoke their language, embraced their grievances, and became a star on the campaign trail. This new role thrust him into the center of numerous scandals. The most significant was the infamous June 9, 2016 meeting at Trump Tower. Don Jr., along with his brother-in-law Jared Kushner and campaign chairman Paul Manafort, met with a Russian lawyer after being promised damaging information about Hillary Clinton as part of Russia and its government's support for Mr. Trump. This meeting became a central focus of the Mueller investigation into Russian interference in the election. His initial misleading statements about the meeting's purpose, claiming it was about adoptions of Russian children, led to a political firestorm and accusations of lying to the public, forcing him to later release the email chain that set up the meeting. During and after his father's presidency, Don Jr. has fully embraced the role of a right-wing media personality and political firebrand. His social media presence is a constant stream of provocative memes attacks on political opponents and defenses of his father. He has become a best-selling author with books like Triggered: How the Left Thrives on Hate and Wants to Silence Us, and a highly paid public speaker. His relationship with former Fox News personality Kimberly Guilfoyle has further cemented his status as a power player in conservative circles. The untold story of Don Jr. is this profound transformation. He is no longer just a businessman. He has become the living embodiment of the MAGA movement's id, a political warrior whose loyalty to his father appears absolute, perhaps forged in the fire of that childhood wound and a lifelong quest for his father's approval. If Don Jr. became the sword of the Trump dynasty, a sharp and aggressive weapon on the political battlefield, the next child would become its shimmering, carefully polished crown jewel, a brand of aspirational elegance designed to soften the family's hard edges and broaden its appeal. Number 4. The brand. Ivanka Trump's impossible pivot. Next came the daughter who was not just a child, but a meticulously crafted brand. She was the family's public face of sophistication and success, a lifestyle guru for the working woman. But her father's political ascent would force her to trade her fashion empire for a controversial seat of power in the West Wing. A gamble that would ultimately cost her the very brand she had spent a lifetime building. Born on October 30th, 1981, Ivanka Trump was always positioned as the golden child, the favorite, the one who most closely mirrored her father's ambition, but presented it in a more palatable, polished package. Like her older brother, she grew up in the opulence of Trump Tower and suffered through the public divorce. But she maintained a famously close, almost symbiotic relationship with her father, often serving as his confidant. She followed in his footsteps to Wharton after 2 years at Georgetown. From a young age, she demonstrated a keen understanding of branding, starting with herself. She had a successful modeling career as a teenager, walking runways for designers like Versace before joining the family business. At the Trump Organization, she was more than just a vice president. She was the face of the brand's future. While her father's brand was about brash 1980s luxury, Ivanka's was about modern, aspirational feminine success. She launched her own highly successful lines of fashion shoes and jewelry, under the Ivanka Trump brand, which was built around the hashtag #WomenWhoWork. She wrote a best-selling book, The Trump Card, Playing to Win in Work and Life. On The Apprentice, she was presented as the calm, intelligent, and poised counterpoint to her father's explosive personality. She was, for a time, one of the most successful and admired female entrepreneurs in America, carefully building a brand that was separate from yet enhanced by her family name. The 2016 campaign changed her trajectory forever. She was a powerful and effective surrogate, introducing her father at the Republican National Convention and speaking about policies like paid family leave and the child tax credit, a strategic effort to appeal to moderate and female voters. She was seen as the whisperer, the one person who could temper her father's worst instincts, a bridge to a more mainstream audience. Her presence was crucial in softening his image. Upon his victory, she and her husband Jared Kushner made the controversial decision to move to Washington, D.C., and take on official unpaid roles in the White House. Ivanka became an advisor to the president. This move immediately sparked a firestorm of criticism about nepotism, security clearances, and conflicts of interest. To quell some of the criticism, she shut down her fashion brand, but the questions about her qualifications and influence persisted. Her time in the White House was a series of scandals of perception and effectiveness. She was criticized for appearing to insert herself into meetings with world leaders, most famously in a viral video from the 2019 G20 summit, where she appeared to be awkwardly trying to join a conversation with Emmanuel Macron, Christine Lagarde, and other leaders who seemed to ignore her. She was scrutinized for her use of a personal email account for government business. But the biggest critique was that her role as a moderating influence was largely a failure. On key issues where she was expected to sway her father, like the Paris Climate Accord or the Muslim ban or family separations at the border, she was either silent or ineffective in the public eye. And this is the true untold story of Ivanka. It is the story of a brand that broke. The sophisticated, apolitical, empowering women brand she had so carefully built was shattered by its collision with the divisive and chaotic reality of her father's presidency. After leaving Washington, she has made a concerted effort to distance herself from politics, moving her family to Florida and publicly stating she would not be a part of any future campaigns. She has even publicly broken from her father in her testimony to the January 6th committee, stating that she accepted Attorney General William Barr's conclusion that there was no widespread election fraud. She is attempting to rebuild a private, more tranquil life. But the question remains, can the Ivanka Trump brand ever be separated from the Trump political legacy? The gamble she made in Washington may have been a permanent one. While Ivanka and Don Jr. became political lightning rods in Washington, the third child of the first marriage remained the dutiful son at home in New York, running the family business. But it was this role that would put him at the very center of the legal and financial firestorm that now threatens the entire Trump empire. Number 3. The Builder. Eric Trump and the Legal Siege. While his older siblings became political celebrities, the third child of the first marriage remained the builder, the one who stayed behind to mind the store and protect the family's financial kingdom. But in doing so, he would find himself on the front lines, facing the greatest legal siege in the company's history. Born on January 6, 1984, Eric Trump has often been described as the most low-key of the three elder siblings, the one who shared his father's passion for building, but not necessarily his craving for the spotlight. He grew up like his siblings in the shadow of the infamous divorce, a period he described as difficult. He attended Georgetown University, distinguishing himself from his Wharton-educated father and siblings. Upon graduation, he immediately joined the Trump Organization, focusing on the more tangible aspects of the business construction management of the golf courses and the Trump Winery in Virginia. He was the son with dirt on his boots, the one who preferred blueprints to boardrooms often seen walking construction sites. Eric also dedicated significant time to philanthropy, establishing the Eric Trump Foundation in 2007 to raise money for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. The foundation raised millions and was for a time a celebrated success. However, it became the source of his first major scandal. In 2017, a Forbes investigation raised serious questions about the foundation's practices. It alleged that the charity was funneling money to the Trump Organization by hosting its fundraising events at Trump-owned golf courses, effectively paying his family's business with donor money, despite claiming the use of the courses was free. The investigation also alleged that Donald Trump himself had redirected money intended for the charity to his own business interests. The subsequent outcry led to Eric stepping away from the foundation and facing intense scrutiny over the ethics of his charitable work. When his father became president, Eric and Don Jr. were put in charge of the Trump Organization. While his brother focused on the political messaging, Eric was left to run the day-to-day operations of a global company, now under an unprecedented level of scrutiny. He also became a fierce and frequent defender of his father on conservative media, particularly on Fox News, where his aggressive and emotional interviews became a staple, often making claims about the deep state and political persecution. And this is the untold story of Eric, what has happened since his father left office. He has been at the absolute epicenter of the family's most damaging legal battle, the New York Attorney General's civil fraud lawsuit. The lawsuit accused the Trump Organization of massively and repeatedly inflating asset values for years to obtain better loans and insurance terms. As the son who was most directly involved in the company's financials during this period, Eric was a key defendant. His testimony during the trial, where he was questioned for hours about property valuations and financial statements, was a major media event. He repeatedly claimed ignorance of the details, stating he was a big-picture guy. The judge ultimately found his testimony not credible. The eventual verdict, a stunning 9-figure judgment against the company, and severe limitations on his ability to do business in New York, was a direct blow to the builder identity he had cultivated. His story is one of a son who tried to stay in the world of business, only to find that in his family business and politics are a battlefield from which there is no escape. The 3 children of Ivanka built their lives at the very center of the Trump empire, weathering its storms from within. But the next daughter would grow up on the outside looking in, a child of scandal who spent her life trying to find her place within the dynasty that often seemed to forget her. Number 2. The Outsider. The Quiet Quest of Tiffany Trump. The next chapter in the Trump saga is the story of the other daughter, a child born from the very affair that destroyed her father's first family. Raised not in the golden halls of Trump Tower, but on the opposite coast, her life has been a quiet, lifelong quest for a foothold in the brilliant, chaotic, and often crowded solar system of her own family. Born on October 13, 1993, Tiffany Ariana Trump's very existence was a scandal. She was the only child of Donald Trump's tumultuous marriage to his second wife, Marla Maples, the actress and model at the center of the affair that ended his marriage to Ivanka. While her half-siblings grew up as a unit, sharing the bond of their mother and their New York upbringing, Tiffany's childhood was defined by distance. After her parents' divorce in 1999, she was raised primarily by her mother in Calabasas, California, thousands of miles away from the family's New York power center. This distance was not just geographical. It was emotional. Her father himself has publicly acknowledged this, once stating in an interview, "I'm very proud of Don and Eric and Ivanka, but I'm a little less close to Tiffany because she was raised on the West Coast." She grew up as an outsider to the core family unit, often seeing her father only on holidays at Mar-a-Lago, a visitor in a world her siblings inhabited. As a young woman, Tiffany seemed to be searching for her own identity and a way to connect with her famous name. In 2011, she released a short-lived auto-tuned pop song titled Like a Bird. In the mid-2010s, she gained notoriety as a member of the so-called rich kids of Instagram, a group of wealthy heirs and heiresses who documented their lavish lifestyles on social media. It seemed she was embracing the socialite path, a way to be seen. But then, she made a series of moves that suggested a desire to be taken more seriously and to connect with her father's world on an intellectual level. She attended the University of Pennsylvania, her father's alma mater, earning a degree in sociology. During his 2016 campaign, she stepped into the political spotlight, delivering a surprisingly poised and personal speech at the Republican National Convention, speaking about her father as a supportive mentor. It was a rare moment where she was at the center of the family's public life. Following her father's victory, she enrolled at Georgetown Law School in Washington, D.C., a demanding institution that gave her a credential and a reason to be in the same city as her powerful family. Her scandal is the quiet one of perceived neglect. She has often been the subject of media narratives that paint her as the forgotten Trump. The untold story is her persistent and successful effort to integrate herself into the family. She has maintained a close relationship with her half-siblings, particularly Ivanka. And since graduating from law school, she has become a more visible presence at family events. Her lavish 2022 wedding to billionaire heir Michael Boulos was held at Mar-a-Lago, a grand affair that served as her official public welcome into the inner circle. Her journey has been a quiet but determined one, a long road from the California coast to the heart of the Trump dynasty. Tiffany's life was a study in navigating the fringes of the Trump dynasty. But the final child would grow up at its very center, yet remain the most protected and mysterious of all, a silent witness to history. Number 1. The Mystery. The protected world of Barron Trump. The final heir to the Trump dynasty is the ultimate mystery. A boy who grew from a toddler in a golden penthouse to a towering teenager in the White House, all while being kept behind an almost impenetrable wall of privacy, becoming the most unseen public figure in modern American history. Born on March 20, 2006, Barron William Trump was the first and only child of Donald and Melania Trump. His childhood was one of extreme privilege even by Trump standards. He famously grew up in Trump Tower with an entire floor to himself, which his mother called Barron's living room. He was raised in a bubble of luxury, largely shielded from the public eye by his fiercely protective mother, who famously dubbed him Little Donald and dressed him in suits from a young age. That bubble burst when his father was elected president. He was just 10 years old. In a highly unusual move, his mother Melania made the decision to keep him in New York for the first 6 months of the presidency so he could finish his school year, a testament to her fierce desire to protect his routine and his childhood. When he finally moved to Washington, he became the first boy to live in the White House since John F. Kennedy Jr. in the 1960s. A remarkable informal truce developed among the mainstream media to afford Barron a level of privacy not granted to previous presidential children in the social media age. He was not to be photographed at school or with his friends. He was off limits. This shield was fiercely enforced by his mother. The few scandals surrounding him were not of his own making, but were instances where that shield was breached. He was criticized online by some for his casual attire or for looking tired during long public events like the inauguration. These attacks were met with swift and widespread condemnation, most notably from Chelsea Clinton, who tweeted, "It's high time the media and everyone leave Barron Trump alone and let him have the private childhood he deserves." The most egregious incident was when comedian Kathy Griffin posed with a bloody decapitated effigy of his father, an image that Melania stated was particularly traumatic for her young son to see. The untold story of Barron is the story of this protective wall and the young man growing up behind it. The world has watched him grow, in glimpses most notably in height as he now towers over his 6'3" father. He is reportedly a dedicated student with a passion for soccer. He is said to be fluent in Slovenian, his mother's native language. His post-White House life has been equally private, spent at school in Florida. In May 2024, the world was given a tantalizing glimpse into his future when he was selected by the Republican Party of Florida to be an at-large delegate to the Republican National Convention. It was a stunning move that suggested he might be stepping into the political arena. However, just as quickly, Melania's office issued a statement that he was declining the role due to prior commitments. The wall of privacy was immediately reestablished. His story remains unwritten, a mystery at the heart of America's most public family. A young man on the cusp of adulthood whose next move is completely unknown. The story of the 5 Trump children is a modern saga of a political dynasty forged in the fires of celebrity business and controversy. Each child has been forced to define themselves in relation to their father's colossal public persona. But the blueprint for the modern political dynasty, with all its glamour, pressure, and tragedy, was written by another first family. That family was, of course, the Kennedys. Have you ever heard the full untold story of John F. Kennedy's children? A story of America's prince. John Jr., who grew up to be a charismatic icon before his life was cut short in a tragic echo of the family's curse, and his sister Caroline, the quiet survivor, who has spent her life as the sole guardian of the Camelot legacy. The full tragic and glamorous story of the Kennedy children is one you will not want to miss. Click the video on your screen right now to watch it next. And as always, thank you for watching.